want to say a word about the news that came out today relative to the economy. Actually, I just want to say a number: 0. Today, we received news that our economy had 0% inflation.
It's President Biden 2 days ago taking a victory lap on inflation. To be fair, he's right about the month. Inflation did not increase last month. It's the first time that's happened since September 2020. That said, inflation has risen 7% since he took office. Under his watch, we reached the highest level of inflation in 40 years. The president points, and his administration certainly wants us to call attention to falling gas prices. National average is now under $4, the first time since March. It's a great win for him, still up significantly from last year and up even more than that from when he took office. One of the many victories the White House now is pointing to, including several in the past weeks. He passed a progressive wish list with the Inflation Reduction Act, revived the domestic semiconductor industry with the CHIPS Act, pumped billions into infrastructure. That came a few months ago. Gave Medicare the ability to negotiate prescription drug prices. That's something that Democrats have been talking about and wanted for a very long time. Passed the PACT Act that gives money to Iraq war veterans who are victims of burn pits, and of course took out the top al-Qaeda terrorists without putting boots on the ground. The polling reflects these wins. His approval numbers are up at 45%. That's the Rasmussen daily tracking, up from 43% last week, up even more from when he was at his lows below 40. President Biden now can enjoy his vacation in South Carolina. It'll be another week of the president largely out of sight. Follows 2+ weeks of COVID isolation, a beach trip to Delaware, and then a victory lap on inflation that we showed you. Of course, he gave speeches from balconies in COVID isolation, but those were limited strictly on the teleprompter. There were no questions and there were no gaffes. It's akin to when he campaigned for president from his basement. Like the past 3 weeks, though, it's worked. President Biden isn't the only one getting a boost over these wins. In the past 90 days, the generic congressional ballot moved 2 points in favor of Democrats. That's huge. It shows the running average of all polls asking, would you vote generically for a Republican or Democrat in the upcoming election? Lauren Wright is here, polling expert, associate research scholar at Princeton University. All right, Lauren, is there a correlation between President Biden not being seen, gas prices going down, and poll numbers going up?
I mean, I doubt it. There aren't very many instances of correlation between presidential approval and what they say in public on a day-to-day basis. I do think that the shifts in the generic ballot you just indicated are very meaningful. However, I don't think they have anything to do with Democrats. I think any gains Republicans, or Democrats rather, are making right now are because of unpopular Republican policies, namely abortion, and whatever controversial thing is going on with President Trump and January 6th. But I have never seen a study that shows any evidence constituents reward presidents for legislative victories. It just really doesn't happen. It's more of a question of minimizing damages than it is of exciting voters or getting people to check your box come November.
Less than 90 days out to the midterms. At what point have we learned things are largely baked in?
Well, I think with the economy, some things are baked in or locked in right now. I mean, even if the White House is trying to communicate these legislative successes, and by the way, any president would do the same thing if gas prices lowered or inflation levels off. Yeah. That's just what they do. But people are still unhappy. People still believe they're experiencing a recession. They still believe the worst is yet to come. And so that's going to take a long time for people to feel optimistic about the economy. And there's very little the president can do, frankly, to reverse those feelings.
You say people aren't rewarded for legislative victories, which makes sense. It's played out on both sides of the aisle. The Inflation Reduction Act, even the American people, much less economists, are saying that this is sort of a laughable name. Everything true, but nothing possible, or upside down world. 36% of Americans say it's going to increase inflation. That's 3 times the number who think it's going to decrease inflation.
Right. It's pretty difficult to send a message to the American public that increased government spending will somehow have a big economic impact. And I think that's certainly true no matter which party is in control. However, I think Democrats have a bigger problem right now, and that's that a lot of congressional reps and key Democrats don't even want to endorse the president for re-election. And so it's a really tough tightrope walk because to some extent, Biden is really good at this legislative negotiating. He has a very realistic view of the Senate. He knows whatever package is going to look like exactly what Joe Manchin wants, but there's no message behind it of 4 more years because Democrats don't even know if they're behind him or if he's going to be the guy.
Lauren, it's good to see you as always. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too, Leland.
All right, thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.